The Grand Assembly Hall floated in the darkness of space like a massive crown of crystal and metal. It orbited Zentara Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Empire, and inside its walls, 300 different species had gathered for what they believed would be a simple matter. They expected to see humanity bow down and accept their place in the Empire. They expected fear. They expected begging. What they got instead would change everything. Jake Morrison stood alone at the center of the hall. The platform beneath his feet was designed to make anyone standing on it feel small. It worked for most species. The ceiling stretched high above, covered in lights that represented every star system under Imperial control. Thousands of representatives sat in curved rows that rose up and away from the center platform, creating a wall of alien faces all watching the single human below. Jake was 42 years old, with gray starting to show in his dark hair. He wore a simple black suit, the formal uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. His briefcase sat on the small table beside him. He looked calm, almost bored, as if he were waiting for a delayed train, rather than standing trial before the most powerful government in the known galaxy. Supreme Chancellor Vexnar rose from the highest seat in the assembly. The Chancellor was an insectoid being nearly 3 meters tall when standing fully upright. His shell was a deep purple color that shifted to black in the shadows. 4 arms moved as he spoke, 2 gesturing while the other 2 held ceremonial staffs that marked his position. He had ruled the Empire for 200 years, and in that time he had crushed 43 rebellions and brought hundreds of species into line. Ambassador Morrison, Vexnar's voice came through the translation devices that every being in the hall wore. We have gathered today to address the violations committed by the human species. Your people have expanded into restricted space. You have refused to honor trade agreements. You have declined to share your faster-than-light technology with the Empire, despite our repeated requests. Most seriously, you have ignored 3 separate summons to appear before this council. Jake said nothing. He simply waited, his hands clasped behind his back. Vexnar continued. The Empire has shown patience with your young species. We welcomed you when you first entered galactic space 25 years ago. We offered trade, protection, and knowledge. In return, we expected cooperation and respect for our laws. Instead, humanity has acted with arrogance and defiance. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled representatives. Many of them had complained about human behavior. The humans traded with anyone who offered good prices, ignoring Imperial trade restrictions. They had claimed 17 systems that the Empire considered strategic, and they refused to give them up. They built military ships at a rate that made older species nervous. And they kept secrets, lots of secrets, especially about how their ships could jump between stars faster than anyone else. Therefore, Vexnar said, his voice growing harder, the Council has reached a decision. Humanity will surrender sovereignty over all colony worlds outside your home system. You will reduce your military fleet to defensive vessels only, with numbers and capabilities to be determined by Imperial oversight. You will provide complete technical specifications for your faster-than-light drive systems. You will accept Imperial governors on all major human worlds and stations, and you will pay reparations for the unauthorized use of restricted space. The hall went completely silent. Every eye, in whatever form eyes took for each species, focused on the lone human. You have 30 standard days to comply, Vexnar said. If you refuse, the Empire will enforce these terms through military action. We have dealt with defiant species before. The outcomes are never pleasant. I would hope that humanity, despite its youth and pride, will show wisdom. Jake Morrison looked up at the Chancellor. He looked around at the assembled representatives. Then he did something that shocked everyone in that hall. He laughed. It wasn't a nervous laugh or a bitter laugh. It was genuine amusement, the kind of laugh someone makes when they hear a joke that catches them off guard. The murmurs started immediately, confused and angry. No one laughed when the Empire delivered an ultimatum. No one treated a declaration of war as a joke. Jake raised a hand, asking for quiet. Surprisingly, the hall settled down. Everyone wanted to hear what the human would say. Chancellor Vexnar, Jake said, his voice steady and clear. Before you commit to this course of action, there's something you need to know. Something about humanity's real history. He turned to his briefcase and opened it. From inside, he pulled out an old book. Not a digital reader or a data tablet, but an actual book made of paper bound in worn leather. The edges of the pages were yellow with age. It looked ancient, fragile, like it might fall apart if handled too roughly. Jake placed the book on the table carefully. "This is a journal," he said. "It belonged to a man named Captain Ben Hayes. He commanded a colony ship called Frontier, and he kept this journal for 37 years. The entries begin 270 years ago." Vexanar's antenna twitched, a sign of irritation. "We did not gather here to discuss ancient history, Ambassador. We are here to discuss your government's answer to our terms." "This is my government's answer," Jake said. He opened the journal to a marked page. "According to your records, humanity's first contact with alien life happened 25 years ago, when one of your exploration vessels encountered a human colony ship. Your records say we were a young species, barely capable of interstellar travel, and that you welcomed us into the galactic community. Is that correct?" "That is correct," Vexnar said impatiently. "Your records are wrong," Jake said quietly. "We let you think that. We needed you to think that. But the truth is very different." He began to read from the journal. 15th of March. "We've been running for 6 months now. The Devourers hit the new Boston colony last week. 30,000 people. Gone. Just like all the others. Admiral Crawford says we might have a year left, maybe less. Earth sent a message. Said they're evacuating everyone they can, but the Devourers are moving too fast. No one knows where they came from or what they want. They just take everything and leave nothing behind." Jake looked up from the journal. "Humanity's first contact with alien life wasn't with you, Chancellor. It was with a species we came to call the Devourers. They arrived in our space 275 years ago, and they tried to wipe us out." The assembly hall erupted in noise. Representatives shouted questions. Some demanded proof. Others called the human a liar. Jake waited for the chaos to settle. "The Devourers were technologically superior to us in every way," Jake continued. "Their ships were faster, their weapons more powerful. They hit Earth's colonies first, then worked their way inward. We tried to fight. We tried to negotiate. Nothing worked. They just kept coming. System after system, world after world." He turned pages in the journal, finding another entry. 21st of July. "Earth fell today. Long-range sensors confirmed it. The Devourers landed in force yesterday. By noon today, all communication stopped. 4 billion people. My wife was visiting her sister in Seattle. My daughter was starting university in London. I'll never see them again. The war's over. We lost." Jake's voice remained calm, but there was something in his eyes now. Something cold. But the war wasn't over. It had only just begun. See, when you're facing extinction, when everything you love is already gone, you stop worrying about rules. You stop worrying about morality. You start worrying about one thing only: survival. He closed the journal but kept his hand on it. This journal documents the next 30 years of human history. 30 years that don't appear in any official records. 30 years that we've kept hidden from every species we've encountered since. 30 years that made us who we really are. Vexnar leaned forward. "Even if your story is true, what does it matter? Ancient wars don't change present reality. The Empire's terms stand." "They matter," Jake said, "because you need to understand what happened to the Devourers. You need to know what humanity became in order to survive. And you need to know that we never stopped being that thing. We just learned to hide it." He opened the journal again, near the end this time. 3rd of November, final entry. "The war is over. The Devourers are gone. Not defeated, not driven away. Gone. Extinct. Every world they held, every ship they built, every last one of them. We did that. We turned 13 inhabited planets into graveyards. We created weapons that should never exist. We became the monsters we were fighting. Admiral Crawford gave the order this morning. Bury the weapons. Hide the war machines. Destroy the records. If anyone ever finds us, if we ever meet other species, they can never know what we did. They can never know what we're capable of. The assembly hall was completely silent now. Jake looked directly at Chancellor Vexnar. You're about to declare war on a species that has already fought an extinction war and won. We've spent 250 years rebuilding, hiding, and preparing. We joined your galactic community because we wanted to try being civilized again. We wanted to believe there was another way. But if you force us to choose between civilization and survival, we'll choose survival every single time. He picked up the journal and held it up. Every human in a position of... The Grand Assembly Hall buzzed with confused whispers and angry muttering. Representatives from 300 species tried to make sense of what they had just heard. Some thought the human was bluffing. Others wondered if there might be truth to his story. A few of the older species, ones who had been exploring space for thousands of years, looked troubled. They had found dead worlds before, planets where civilizations had been wiped out by unknown forces. Could humans be connected to those mysteries? Chancellor Vexnar raised one of his staffs, calling for order. The noise gradually died down. Ambassador Morrison, these are serious claims. The Empire keeps extensive records of known space. We have no documentation of the species you call the Devourers. We have found no evidence of the war you describe. Do you expect us to believe this story based solely on an old book? Jake Morrison opened the journal again, handling the ancient pages with care. Captain Ben Hayes was very detailed in his record-keeping. He documented everything: dates, locations, fleet movements, battle outcomes. I'll share it all with you. But first, let me read you how it started. He found a page near the beginning and began to read. 3rd of January, 275 years ago. Strange ship detected at the edge of the system. Nothing like our designs. We tried to communicate using every frequency we could generate. No response. The ship approached our colony on Marshall's World. Governor Klein ordered the defense platforms to hold fire. Didn't want to start an interstellar incident by shooting first. The ship landed near the capital city. 3 hours later, every living thing in the city was gone. Not dead, just gone. The ship left, heading toward the next colony. We still don't know what they want. Jake looked up. That was humanity's first lesson. Peaceful intentions mean nothing if the other side doesn't share them. Within a week, the Devourers hit 6 more colonies. We tried everything to communicate. We sent messages in mathematics and music and pictures. Nothing worked. They ignored every attempt at contact and continued harvesting our worlds. He turned more pages, his finger tracing the handwritten lines. 8th of February. Earth government has declared a state of emergency. All military forces are being mobilized. The Devourers seem to be moving in a pattern, hitting the outer colonies first. Scientists think they're working their way inward toward Earth. Admiral Crawford has taken command of all fleet operations. She's ordering a full evacuation of the next 3 colonies in the Devourers' path. We won't try to defend them, just get everyone out. We need to buy time to understand what we're fighting. A representative from the Kelvin Assembly, a species known for their military expertise, spoke up. What weapons did these Devourers use? How did they defeat your defenses? Jake found another entry. 22nd of February. We got our first good look at a Devourer ship today. Our fastest destroyer managed to shadow one for 6 hours before it jumped away. The recordings are terrifying. The ship is biological, or partially biological, we can't tell. It moves in ways that shouldn't be possible, changing direction without slowing down. Our best missiles couldn't catch it. Our energy weapons hit it but did no visible damage. The ship responded by firing some kind of projectile that passed through our destroyer's shields like they weren't there. The ship broke apart. 130 crew members. No survivors. The hall was quiet now, everyone listening. Jake continued reading. Admiral Crawford held a meeting with all available captains. She was blunt. We can't fight these things with our current technology. Every engagement is a massacre. We need to change our approach. She's authorized research into weapons that were previously banned. Biological weapons, genetic targeting, artificial intelligence warfare systems, things we swore we'd never build. Some captains objected. Crawford's response was simple. We can die with our morals intact, or we can survive and live with what we become. She's giving us a choice, but she's already made hers. Jake closed the journal for a moment and looked around the assembly. This is where humanity changed. We realized that survival required us to abandon everything we thought made us civilized. The Devourers forced us to make a choice, be monsters or be extinct. He opened the journal to a different section. 14th of April, Earth has fallen. Confirmation came this morning. The Devourers landed in force 3 days ago. Our defense fleet was destroyed in hours. The planet's surface installations managed to hold for another day. Then silence. 12 billion people gone. Mars was hit yesterday. The mining colonies in the asteroid belt are evacuating, but they won't make it. The Devourers are moving too fast. Jake's voice remained steady, but something had shifted in his tone. Captain Hayes was on one of the refugee fleets when Earth fell. His ship, the Frontier, was part of a convoy trying to reach the outer colonies. They watched Earth die from a distance, unable to help. And that's when things changed. He found the next entry. 21st of April. Admiral Crawford has taken command of what's left of humanity. Maybe 800 million survivors scattered across a dozen refugee fleets. She gave a speech today. I've never heard anything like it. She said the old humanity died with Earth. We tried to be peaceful. We tried to be civilized. It got us exterminated. She said we're going to become something new. Something the Devourers can't predict or counter. Something that will make them regret they ever came to our space. Some people called it madness. Others called it necessary. I don't know what to call it. I just know we don't have any other options. A representative from the Peaceful Coalition, a group of species dedicated to nonviolence, stood up. You're describing the descent into barbarism. Surely there were other options: negotiation, retreat, hiding until the threat passed. Jake looked at the representative with something close to pity. We tried negotiation. The Devourers never responded. We tried retreating. They followed. We tried hiding. They found us. When every civilized option fails, you're left with uncivilized ones. He continued reading. 1st of May. The research stations have been working around the clock. They've made progress on several weapon systems that might work against the Devourers. Project Reaper is developing biological agents that target specific genetic sequences. If we can get close enough to analyze Devourer biology, we might be able to create something that kills them specifically. Project Swarm is building self-replicating war machines, tiny drones that can reproduce themselves using any available material. Once released, they'd be almost impossible to stop. Project Ghost is developing artificial intelligence systems designed for war. With no ethical constraints programmed in, the AI would have one goal: destroy the Devourers by any means necessary. Jake paused, letting that sink in. These weren't desperate last-minute ideas. Humanity had considered these weapon types before, decades earlier during our own internal wars. We had banned them because they were too dangerous, too likely to get out of control, but now we unbanned everything. We turned our best scientists loose with no restrictions. He turned to another marked page. 15th of June. First successful test of the biological weapon. They use samples collected from a destroyed Devourer ship. The agent works. It breaks down Devourer cellular structure at the molecular level. Death occurs in minutes, and it's apparently very painful. The scientists say it can be delivered through atmosphere, water, or direct contact. It won't affect any other known form of life, just Devourers. Admiral Crawford has ordered mass production. She wants enough to sterilize every world the Devourers control. The assembly hall erupted again. Voices rose in shock and anger. The representative from the Peaceful Coalition was shouting something about war crimes. Chancellor Vexnar raised both staffs, demanding silence. These are horrific weapons you describe, Vexnar said. The Empire has strict laws against such technology. Biological warfare is forbidden. Self-replicating machines are forbidden. Unrestricted artificial intelligence is forbidden. You're admitting that humanity violated every principle of civilized warfare. We did, Jake said simply, because there was no civilized warfare. There was only survival or extinction. We chose survival. He found another entry. 3rd of August. Project Swarm has been deployed. Admiral Crawford ordered the release of 5 million initial drones in a system the Devourers recently occupied. The drones began replicating immediately, using material from destroyed ships and abandoned stations. Within a week, there were billions of them. Within 2 weeks, trillions. The Devourers tried to destroy them, but for every drone they killed, 100 more took its place. The swarm consumed 3 Devourer ships, broke them down to base materials, and used them to build more drones. The Devourers abandoned the system. First time we've seen them retreat. Jake looked up. That was the turning point. We realized we could win. Not through better technology or superior tactics, but through weapons that the Devourers couldn't comprehend. They were a species that fought according to their own rules. We abandoned all rules. He turned to the final section he wanted to share. 19th of October. Admiral Crawford has authorized Operation Final Night. We've located the Devourer home system. Long-range scouts confirmed 13 inhabited planets and hundreds of stations and outposts. Crawford's plan is simple. Jake Morrison let the silence stretch. He wanted the assembled representatives to understand the weight of what he had just revealed. 300 species, some of them thousands of years old, all sitting in stunned quiet as they processed the implications. Finally, he opened the journal again. Captain Ben Hayes wrote extensively about the final year of the war. These entries are difficult to read, but they're necessary for you to understand what humanity became. He found a page marked with a red ribbon. 1st of December. Our fleet is gathering for the final push. We've spent the last year preparing. Every weapon system we developed is ready. The biological agents are loaded into atmospheric dispersal pods. The drone swarms are contained in launch bays, millions of them waiting for release. The AI systems have been activated and given their targets. Admiral Crawford gave a final briefing today. She said that after today, humanity will either be safe or extinct. There's no middle ground. She also said that what we're about to do will change us forever. We'll have to live with it, but we'll live. That's what matters. Jake looked up briefly, then continued. 3rd of December. We arrived at the Devourer home system. It's beautiful. 3 suns, all orbiting each other in a complex pattern. 13 planets, most of them inhabited. We can see their cities from orbit. Massive structures covering entire continents. They built an impressive civilization. We're about to destroy all of it. The attack began at dawn. Their dawn. We released the biological agents first, targeting the planets with the largest populations. The agents entered the atmosphere and began spreading. According to our calculations, every devourer on those planets will be dead within 48 hours. The representative from the peaceful coalition stood again, her voice shaking. This is mass murder. This is evil. How can you sit there and describe the slaughter of billions as if it were a military operation? Jake met her eyes. Because that's what it was, a military operation. The Devourers killed 12 billion humans. They showed no mercy, accepted no surrender, ignored every attempt at peace. They forced us to become what we became. If you have a better solution, I'd love to hear it. But keep in mind you have to give that solution to humanity from 245 years ago, when we were facing extinction, and the Devourers were coming for our last survivors. The representative sat down slowly. No one else spoke. Jake continued reading. 5th of December. The planets are dying. Long-range sensors show the biological agents working exactly as designed. The Devourers are trying to evacuate, but there's nowhere to go. Every ship they launch is met by our fleet. We're not letting anyone escape. Admiral Crawford was very clear about that. Total elimination. No survivors. No refugees. No one left to rebuild or seek revenge. The drone swarms have been released on their industrial stations. The machines are multiplying, consuming everything they touch. Within a week, there will be trillions of them, and they'll keep reproducing until there's nothing left to consume. Jake turned the page. 7th of December. Something unexpected happened. A group of Devourers tried to communicate with us. They broadcast on multiple frequencies using mathematical patterns we recognize. They're surrendering. They're begging for mercy. Admiral Crawford listened to the transmission. Then she ordered our ships to destroy every vessel that broadcast the message. Afterward, she addressed the fleet. She said that mercy is a luxury we can't afford. The Devourers showed us no mercy when they hit our worlds. They didn't listen when we tried to surrender. Why should we be better than them? Why should we show them the compassion they denied us? Some captains questioned the order. Crawford relieved them of command and assigned new captains. The operation continued. The assembly hall was filled with quiet horror. Even Chancellor Vexenar looked disturbed, his antenna drooping slightly. Jake kept reading. 10th of December. The Devourer homeworlds are silent now. All life has ceased. The biological agent worked better than expected. Not just the Devourers died, but everything on those planets. Plants, animals, microorganisms, everything. The planets are sterile. Dead worlds orbiting dead suns. The drone swarms have consumed all the orbital infrastructure. Millions of stations, shipyards, defense platforms, all gone. The AI systems are hunting down the remaining Devourer ships in deep space. There aren't many left. Most of them tried to flee when they realized what was happening. Our AI hunted them down. Every single one. Jake paused and pulled out a different document from his briefcase. This is a copy of Admiral Crawford's final report. She submitted it to what remained of Earth's government, now operating from a colony ship. I'll read you the summary. He unfolded the document and read, Total Devourer casualties estimated 13.2 billion individuals. Total elimination of Devourer civilization confirmed. All 13 homeworlds rendered uninhabitable. All space infrastructure destroyed. No surviving Devourer vessels detected. No refugee populations identified. The species is extinct. Human casualties during the final operation, 412 military personnel killed in action. Mission accomplished. Jake folded the document. 412 humans died to eliminate 13 billion Devourers. That's the math of what we did. That's what happens when a species decides that survival justifies anything. A new voice spoke up. It belonged to an elderly representative from the Ancient Collective, a group of species so old that they had been exploring space before most other species had discovered fire. Ambassador Morrison, my people have records going back 50,000 years. We have explored much of this galaxy. We have found dead worlds before, planets where advanced civilizations were wiped out by unknown forces. Are you telling us that humanity is responsible for those deaths? Jake shook his head. No. The Devourers were responsible. They killed the civilizations on those worlds. We just made sure the Devourers couldn't do it again. He opened the journal to another section. Captain Hayes wrote about the aftermath, about what happened when humanity realized what they had done. He read the entry. 20th of December. The fleet is returning to our space. It's quiet. No one is celebrating. Admiral Crawford addressed everyone yesterday. She said we won. We survived. But she also said we paid a price for that survival. We created weapons that should never exist. We used them without hesitation. We committed genocide to prevent our own genocide. She asked if that makes us better than the Devourers or just as bad. She didn't have an answer. Neither do I. Jake turned more pages. 5th of January. Admiral Crawford has issued new orders. All biological weapons are to be destroyed. All drone swarms are to be deactivated and dismantled. All AI systems are to be shut down. She says we created these things to survive, but keeping them active is too dangerous. The weapons don't understand mercy or restraint. If we're not careful, they'll keep killing long after we want them to stop. Some scientists objected, saying we should keep the weapons in case we face another threat. Crawford's response was that if we keep them, we'll become the threat. The assembly listened as Jake continued. But the weapons weren't destroyed. Admiral Crawford's orders were only partially followed. The biological weapons were sealed away in secure facilities. The drone swarms were deactivated, but not dismantled. The AI systems were put into hibernation mode, not shut down. And all the research, all the technical data, all the specifications, everything was preserved and hidden. Humanity made a decision. We would bury our weapons, but we wouldn't throw them away. Chancellor Vexenar leaned forward. Why? If these weapons were so terrible, why keep them? Jake closed the journal. Because we learned something from the Devourers. We learned that the universe is dangerous. We learned that peaceful species can be exterminated by aggressive ones. We learned that survival sometimes requires being willing to do terrible things. So we kept the weapons hidden away, maintained but never used, and we made a promise to ourselves. He picked up the journal again and found the final entry. 10th of March. Final entry. Admiral Crawford has announced her retirement. She's done. She said she'll carry the weight of what we did for the rest of her life, but she's glad someone else will make the decisions from now on. Before she left, she gave one last order. She said that humanity needs to rebuild. We need to find other species, join the larger galactic community if one exists, and try to be the peaceful, civilized people we were before the war. But she also said we can never forget what we're capable of. We need to remember what we did to the Devourers, not because we're proud of it, but because we need to stay aware of our own darkness. She's ordered that every human leader, every military commander, every diplomat will receive a copy of these journals. We'll study them. We'll learn from them. And we'll remember that if we're ever pushed to the edge again, we know exactly what we're capable of. Jake set the journal down gently. That order is still in effect. I carry this journal because my position requires it. Every human ambassador, every fleet commander, every governor of every colony, we all have copies. We read them, we study them, and we remember. He looked directly at Chancellor Vexnar. For 245 years, humanity has kept this secret. We encountered your exploratory. Chancellor Vexnar stood completely still, all four of his arms frozen in place. Around the assembly hall, representatives from 300 species sat in shocked silence. The implications of what Jake Morrison had revealed were only beginning to sink in. Everything they thought they knew about humanity was wrong. You've been lying to us for 25 years, Vexnar said finally, his voice cold. You infiltrated the galactic community under false pretenses. You've been hiding your true capabilities the entire time. This alone is grounds for expulsion from the Empire, if not outright hostile action. Jake nodded slowly. You're right, we lied. But we lied because we wanted to try again. After the war with the Devourers, humanity had a choice. We could stay isolated, keep our weapons active, and wait for the next threat. Or we could try to rejoin galactic civilization, try to be peaceful again, try to be the species we were before the war forced us to change. He picked up his briefcase and pulled out another document. This is a copy of the treaty that founded the new human government after the war. It's called the Survival Accords. Every human colony, every station, every ship operates under these accords. Let me read you the key sections. Jake unfolded the document. Article 1. Humanity's primary directive is survival. All other concerns are secondary. Article 2. Human civilization will maintain hidden military capabilities sufficient to ensure survival against any threat. Article 3. These capabilities will be kept secret from all non-human species until such time as disclosure becomes necessary. Article 4. Humanity will seek peaceful relations with all species whenever possible, but will not hesitate to use any means necessary if survival is threatened. He lowered the document. We've been following these accords for 245 years. When we encountered your empire, we made a collective decision. We would join your community. We would be peaceful neighbors. We would contribute to your civilization, but we would never, ever make ourselves vulnerable again. A representative from the Technical Guild, a species known for their engineering expertise, spoke up. You claim to have hidden military capabilities. Even if your story about the Devourers is true, that was centuries ago. Technologies decay. Weapons require maintenance. Knowledge gets lost. How could you maintain such capabilities for so long in secret? Jake smiled, but there was no humor in it. We've been very careful. Let me show you what I mean. He pulled out a tablet and activated a holographic display. The image showed a massive structure floating in space. It looked like an agricultural station, the kind that produces food for colony worlds. Huge rotating sections created artificial gravity. Solar panels stretched out like wings, gathering energy. Ships moved in and out, hauling cargo. This is Agricultural Station 7 orbiting one of our colony worlds, Jake explained. It produces food for 3 million people. It's been operating for 18 years. Your inspectors have visited it twice. They found nothing unusual. It's exactly what it appears to be, a farming station. He pressed a button on the tablet. The image changed. Now it showed the same station, but different sections were highlighted in red. This is what Agricultural Station 7 actually is. Yes, it produces food, but hidden inside those rotating sections are shipyards, not small repair facilities. Actual military shipyards capable of building warships. The solar panels? Half of them are disguised weapons platforms. The cargo ships moving in and out? Most of them are carrying military equipment, not food. If we needed to, we could convert this station from agriculture to military production in 72 hours. The assembly hall erupted in angry voices. Representatives shouted accusations. Some demanded immediate inspections of all human facilities. Others called for military intervention. Jake waited for the noise to die down. Agricultural Station 7 is not unique. Every major human facility has dual purposes. Our research stations study science, but they also develop weapons. Our mining operations extract resources, but they also stockpile military materials. Our cargo vessels haul goods, but they can be converted to troop carriers or missile platforms. We've built our entire civilization with hidden capabilities. He changed the holographic display again. Now it showed a star chart with hundreds of systems marked. These are the systems we've claimed in the past 25 years. You've complained about us expanding too quickly, taking systems you consider strategic. You're right to be concerned. These systems aren't just colonies. They're carefully positioned to give us strategic advantages, control of jump points, access to rare materials, defensive positions. We've been building a military infrastructure disguised as peaceful expansion. Chancellor Vexenar's antennae were vibrating with rage. This is an act of war. You've been preparing for conflict since the day you entered our space. No, Jake said firmly. We've been preparing for survival. There's a difference. If we wanted war, you'd already be at war. We have the capability to strike first, to hit your military installations before you could respond. But we haven't. We've been peaceful. We've honored our agreements. We've contributed to your society. We've done everything we could to be good neighbors. But we've also been ready, because we learned the hard way that the universe doesn't care about good intentions. He changed the display again. This time it showed technical specifications, complex diagrams of ship designs and weapon systems. You've been asking us to share our faster-than-light technology. You want to know how our ships jump between stars faster than yours? Here's the truth. The drive systems we use are deliberately inferior to what we're capable of building. The representative from the technical guild stood up, studying the diagrams. That's impossible. Your ships are already faster than anything in the Empire. They are, Jake agreed, but they're nowhere near as fast as they could be. The Devourers had faster-than-light technology that was centuries ahead of anything else we'd seen. We reverse-engineered it. We improved on it. The drives we use now are a step backward, something we built specifically for interacting with other species. Our actual military drives are 3 times faster. We've kept that capability hidden. He pulled up more diagrams. The weapons on our ships work the same way. What you see is deliberately limited. Our actual weapons technology is based on what we developed during the war with the Devourers. Directed energy weapons that can punch through any known shielding. Missiles that can track targets through faster-than-light jumps. Defensive systems that can predict and counter incoming fire. We have all of it. We just don't show it. A new voice spoke, this one belonging to a representative from the military coalition. Even with superior technology, you're vastly outnumbered. The Empire has thousands of ships. You have what, maybe 200? Even with better weapons, you couldn't win a prolonged war. Jake's expression didn't change. You think we have 200 ships because that's what we've shown you. You've seen our patrol vessels, our escorts, our cargo haulers. You've never seen our actual military fleet because we've kept it hidden. He pressed another button. The holographic display changed to show a list of numbers that made several representatives gasp. Our official fleet consists of 212 vessels of various sizes. That's what appears in every public record, but our actual military capability includes another 2,300 ships. Some are hidden in deep space, some are disguised as civilian vessels, some are stored in dimensional pockets, spaces that exist slightly outside normal space-time. Your sensors can't detect them because they're not fully in this dimension. The assembly hall went silent. Even Chancellor Vexenar seemed stunned. Jake continued. Those ships are fully operational and can be deployed in hours. They're crewed by personnel who officially work in civilian jobs but are actually military. They're armed with weapons that exceed anything in your arsenal. And they're just the beginning. He changed the display one more time. Now it showed something that looked like a swarm of tiny objects surrounding a planet. Remember the self-replicating war machines I mentioned? The drone swarms that we supposedly deactivated after the war? We lied about that too. The swarms were never fully shut down. They're in hibernation mode, stored in facilities throughout human space. If activated, they would begin reproducing immediately. Within weeks, there would be billions of them. Within months, trillions. They're programmed to target any species we designate as hostile. Once released, they're almost impossible to stop. A representative from the science directorate spoke, her voice shaking. Those machines are banned by every civilized species. They're too dangerous. If they malfunction, or if the targeting parameters are wrong, they could spread uncontrollably. They could consume entire star systems. I know, Jake said quietly. We know. That's why we've never used them. That's why they've been in hibernation for 200 years. But they exist. They're ready. And if we have to choose between unleashing them and watching humanity go extinct, we'll unleash them. He deactivated the holographic display and placed his hands on the table. I'm not showing you this to threaten you, Chancellor. I'm showing you this because you need to understand what you're actually declaring war against. You think you're facing a young species with limited capabilities. The Grand Assembly Hall remained silent for a long moment. 300 species, thousands of representatives, all trying to process what they had learned. The humans weren't newcomers. They weren't weak. They were survivors of a war that had turned them into something terrifying, and they had been hiding that truth for a quarter century. Chancellor Vexnar finally broke the silence. His voice was controlled, but there was an edge to it that hadn't been there before. Ambassador Morrison, let me make sure I understand your position. You're saying that if the Empire proceeds with our ultimatum, humanity will go to war, and you believe you can win that war. Jake Morrison shook his head. No, Chancellor. I'm not saying we believe we can win. I'm saying we know we can survive. There's a difference. Winning implies that both sides walk away from the conflict, just with different outcomes. Survival means that one side walks away and the other doesn't. We've done it before. He pulled out his tablet again and activated a new display. This time it showed real-time data feeds from across human space. I need to tell you something else. When you delivered your ultimatum today, you triggered a contingency protocol that humanity established 200 years ago. It's called Protocol Final Shield. It activates automatically whenever humanity faces an existential threat. The display showed military installations coming online, ships leaving hidden storage facilities, defense platforms powering up, personnel moving to combat stations, all of it happening simultaneously across dozens of star systems. This protocol doesn't require authorization from human leadership, Jake explained. It's automatic. The moment you declared your intention to dismantle our sovereignty and occupy our worlds, you crossed a red line that we established long ago. Our systems recognized it as an existential threat and responded accordingly. A representative from the Security Council stood up. You're saying your entire military is mobilizing right now? Without orders from your government? Our government gave the orders 200 years ago, Jake said. They programmed them into every system, every ship, every installation. If humanity faces extinction, we fight. No debate, no hesitation, no surrender. It's built into our infrastructure. He changed the display to show something more disturbing. Networks of autonomous systems activating throughout the galaxy. Things that had been dormant for centuries were waking up. Remember the artificial intelligence systems I mentioned? The ones designed for war with no ethical constraints? They're waking up too. Right now, across human space and beyond, these systems are coming online. They're assessing threats. They're calculating strategies. They're preparing for war. Chancellor Vexnar's antenna drooped. Can you stop them? Yes, Jake said. If you withdraw your ultimatum within the next 6 hours, I can send the deactivation codes. Everything will stand down. The weapons will go back into storage. The AI systems will return to hibernation. The drone swarms will remain dormant. We'll go back to being peaceful neighbors, and we can pretend this conversation never happened. He paused. But if you don't withdraw, if those 6 hours pass and the ultimatum stands, then the systems will reach a point of no return. They'll classify the Empire as a confirmed existential threat, and they'll begin offensive operations. And once that happens, I can't stop them. Nobody can. They'll keep fighting until either humanity is safe or the threat is eliminated. The assembly hall erupted into chaos. Representatives shouted at each other. Some demanded immediate withdrawal of the ultimatum. Others insisted the Empire couldn't show weakness. A few suggested negotiating new terms. Several species threatened to leave the Empire if war with humanity proceeded. Jake waited for the noise to die down. When it didn't, he did something that got everyone's attention. He activated another holographic display, this one showing coordinates for a specific star system. Chancellor, he said, his voice cutting through the chaos. You asked for proof that my story is true. You wanted evidence that the Devourers existed and that humanity defeated them. I'm giving you coordinates. Send your fastest scout ship to this location. It's 3 weeks away at your best speed. You'll find what's left of the Devourer home system. 13 dead planets. No life, no survivors. Just empty cities and silent worlds. That's what humanity does when we're desperate. Now imagine what we can do when we're prepared. Chancellor Vexnar stared at the coordinates. 3 weeks is too long. We need to make a decision now. Then make it based on what you know, Jake said. You know that humanity has been hiding its capabilities. You know we've prepared for this possibility. You know we're willing to use weapons that terrify us. The question you need to ask yourself is whether controlling human space is worth the cost of finding out exactly how far we'll go. He picked up the journal one last time. Captain Ben Hayes wrote something in his final entry that has guided human policy for 2 centuries. He said that humanity learned a terrible lesson from the Devourers. He said we learned that peace is a choice, not a guarantee. That survival sometimes requires becoming the thing you fear. That the willingness to do terrible things can be a deterrent if your enemies believe you'll actually do them. Jake closed the journal. For 25 years, the Empire hasn't believed we'd do terrible things because we've seemed so peaceful. But that was us choosing peace, not us being incapable of war. Every day for the past 25 years, humanity has chosen to be civilized. We've chosen to hide our weapons. We've chosen to cooperate rather than dominate. But those are choices we've made, and we can unmake them just as easily. A new voice spoke from the upper levels of the assembly. It belonged to the representative from the ancient collective, the same elderly being who had spoken earlier. Ambassador Morrison, I've lived for 3,000 years. I've seen hundreds of species rise and fall. I've watched civilizations destroy themselves through war. What you're describing, this hidden arsenal, these terrible weapons, they frighten me not because of what they can do to the Empire, but because of what they've already done to humanity. The ancient being descended to a lower level, moving slowly but with purpose. You carry that journal like a shield and a warning, but it's also a chain. You're trapped by your own history. Every decision you make is filtered through the lens of that war. You can never truly be peaceful because you're always preparing for the next fight. You've built an entire civilization around trauma and survival. That's not strength, Ambassador. That's a prison. Jake was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than it had been. You're not wrong. We are trapped by our history. Every human grows up learning about the war with the Devourers. We study the mistakes our ancestors made. We memorize the lessons they learned. We carry the weight of what they did. It shapes everything about us. He looked down at the journal. But that prison, as you call it, has kept us alive. It's kept us vigilant. It's prevented us from becoming complacent. Yes, we can never truly relax. Yes, we're always looking over our shoulder. But we're still here. We survived when we shouldn't have. And we'll keep surviving because we remember what happens when we're not prepared. The ancient being nodded slowly. I understand. And I pity you. Because even if you win this war, even if the Empire withdraws and leaves you in peace, you'll still be prisoners of that history. You'll still be preparing for the next threat. You'll never be free. Maybe not, Jake agreed. But we'll be alive. And sometimes that's enough. Chancellor Vexnar raised one of his staffs. The hall fell silent immediately. The Empire requires time to discuss this matter. Ambassador Morrison, you will remain in the assembly hall while the council deliberates. Your 6-hour deadline will be honored. Jake nodded. I'll be here. The representatives began filing out, heading to private chambers where they could debate without the human listening. Jake stood alone on the platform, the journal still in his hands. He looked small again, one man standing in a vast empty hall. But now everyone knew that behind that one man stood a species that had already proven they would burn the galaxy, rather than accept extinction. Hours passed. Jake remained standing, occasionally checking his tablet for status updates from human space. The countdown continued. 5 hours remaining. 4 hours. 3. Finally, the representatives returned. They filed back into their seats in silence. The tension was incredible. Everyone knew that whatever decision had been made would shape the future of the galaxy. Chancellor Vexnar rose to his feet. All 4 of his arms held his staffs now, a formal stance used only for the most important announcements. Ambassador Morrison, the Council has reached a decision. We have sent scout ships to the coordinates you provided. Until we receive confirmation of your claims, we cannot make a final judgment. However, we also cannot ignore the implications of what you've revealed today. He paused. Therefore, the Empire is withdrawing its ultimatum. The terms we demanded, the sovereignty, the fleet reduction, the technology sharing, all of it is withdrawn. Humanity will retain full independence and control of its territory. We will establish new diplomatic protocols to address future disputes through negotiation, rather than ultimatum. Relief washed through the assembly hall. Several representatives visibly relaxed. But Vexnar wasn't finished. However, he continued, humanity must understand that the trust,